Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, communication is pretty much everything in our lives. We're social creatures. We communicate with others. We're communicating right now, actually. How can we improve that communication? How can we foster better relationships by understanding different types of communication and being the most proficient at each type? We're going to dig into that today. She wrote the book about this and so much more. The book is called Love Yourself, Love Your Life. And inside the book is a chapter called Speak Your Truth, Speak, i.e., communication. Great book, one of a few that she has. And she is an amazing psychotherapist. Dr. Ann Creekmore is back with us today. How's everything going for you?
Great. Steve, how about you?
Very well. Very well. And I love every chapter in your book. There's so much clarity. Like, I'm not a big book person. I should be. I've got books just being read, waiting to be read. But I'm 12 pages in. I'll get to that. I don't. Yours just pulls me in because it's very easy to understand and it's very usable information. Should we start here with the different categories of communication?
Sure. That's a great place to start.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've heard some of these before: passive, aggressive, passive aggressive. They are independent of each other. When we talk about passive communication, how would you define that?
Well, passive communication is when you act like the other person has all the rights. You don't have any rights. You just bottle up your feelings, your needs. You don't share. You just keep quiet and don't share your own needs. And of course, if you can't share your feelings and needs, no one knows, and you're not probably going to get your needs met. So it's not a healthy style of communication.
Okay. Aggressive, kind of self-explanatory, but let's explain it. We're communicating.
Sure. It's right, exactly. It's when you act like that you have all the rights and the other person doesn't have any rights. You express in a way that's verbally or mentally, emotionally aggressive by saying you messages, say it's call away or you, by saying you're doing this wrong, you need to do this different. You kind of put down the other person, what they need to do or what they're not doing right. And of course, that's not a very healthy way of expressing, because it's acting like they don't have any rights, any needs. You know everything. You're telling them what to do. And the other person usually gets defensive and starts saying, you back to them. Well, you did this and then you did that. And so nobody's listening. Nobody's working anything out. So it's not a very effective form of communication either.
The I and the you. I always try to say us as opposed to the I and the you. But what are your overall thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's fine. That's fine. When we get into the healthy one, assertive, there's a form called I messages where you talk about your own feelings and needs. And that's the healthy way compared to the passive or the aggressive, or the passive aggressive, which is a combo being passive and aggressive, but indirectly. And that is where you don't outright say you're doing this wrong or you need to change, you need to do this. You're not aggressively telling them what to do, but you're indirectly telling them you're mad, like by rolling your eyes, or you just diss them, or you don't respond, or you forget to do what they wanted. In some way, you let them know I'm mad at you, give them the cold shoulder. But they don't know still what's wrong, because you didn't say it. They just know you're mad with them for something. And then they probably kind of get mad back too, in a way. And that doesn't get you anywhere. There's no communication there either. And then the I messages is the healthy way. I'll tell that in a minute. Go ahead.
An example of that, in terms of I messages, like give us a sentence if you were going to say something, need something, making a point.
Yes. Can you give me like an example maybe of something that you might have as a concern that you've heard from somebody, and I'll put it into an I message.
Okay. I'm going to go real here.
Uh-huh. Okay. It's always
We're
good.
we're a couple. We have a dog. You want to get the dog groomed every 3 weeks. I think we should watch our expenses every 6 weeks at least. He doesn't need to be groomed that often.
Yes.
How would you address that in the I statement?
Okay. There's three parts and then a follow up afterwards. So, but right into this three parts. The first part of the sentence is when, WHEN, and you fill in the blank. It could be like when we are watching our money and somebody wants to get the dog groomed every 3 weeks, which is pretty costly. Then and then the next part is then, THEN, I feel. You put your emotions in. So when this happens, then I feel. What would be some emotions, not thoughts, because we'll get to that in the next part of it. But what would be the emotion that you're feeling
The
under
emotion.
anger? And you're
Okay.
yeah,
The
sad
emotion.
or anxious kind of emotion.
Anxiety. Because we're watching our expenses. So,
Uh-huh.
then I feel uncomfortable knowing that we're not watching the expenses.
Right. Okay. All right. So you'd say, like, when we're watching, when we have some expense issues to be focusing on, and somebody wants, you don't have to say you, somebody wants to have the dog groomed every 3 weeks, which is expensive, then I feel alone in my, desire to watch our finances and anxious about the finances because it seems we're putting money into things and not looking at our big picture of our needs financially.
Hmm.
So it's
So,
kind of like when then I feel because we need to look at our overall budget and keep track of things. And it seems like we're just taking care of things that, well, anyway, I said it.
I'm writing
Mhm.
this. I'm writing this down.
Oh,
So
cool. Go
it's the
take your time.
when. It's the when.
When
Then.
and the in parentheses, the incident, just a general description of the incident.
Mhm.
When we're watching finances and then someone wants all this money spent on the dog. That's the incident. Then I feel, then you put your emotions under anger. Remember, anger is just a clue telling you got some feelings, real deeper feelings. You got some sort of sad feeling or some sort of anxious feeling. You get to that. And you said, you're feeling anxious. And I got that you're feeling kind of alone in your quest to keep the finances on track. So you felt alone and anxious because that doesn't seem to be, the finances aren't really being looked at in the big picture and your needs, all overall, y'all's needs. Does that? So
Hmm.
the last one
And
is
this
the
is
thought process because, and then introduce the thought process parentheses.
and this is called the I am
I message, just an
I
I.
message.
My feelings, my needs. And
Gotcha.
people can't usually get mad at you. I mean, people have a right to have their feelings and needs. And if you're feeling alone or you're feeling, anxious about something, that's a healthy way. People generally might even say, oh, I'm sorry or something. And then after that, that's when you the final step is to make a small, specific behavior request. So what would be something, and you can write that if you want, and that, but because then and it's small, it's not like a big request. So please start thinking, using your noggin and thinking about finances. That's a big request. It's a very small thing. It's say like, would you, what would you suggest? What would you ask as a small behavior request that
I
you'd
would
like to add?
appreciate it if you keep closer watch on what we're spending.
Okay. I like that. I'm just going to say that that's even bigger than what usually the small specific behavior request is. It's
Okay,
that
so
even saying, because you're kind of saying like, and what if so a lot of people aren't interested in, aren't savvy or great at the big picture of watching, what you could say is, you know, you could say, would you consider sitting down with me so we could kind of look at our budget together, maybe come up with our expenses, is our income and our outgoing, and see. So that's really all you're asking. The small is, would you mind sitting down with me and let me kind of show you a little budget or what I've written up,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
doing it with me.
Being
And
being
that's,
proactive, being
yeah,
proactive.
being so, and it's kind of concrete, and the person might consider it. Yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say about the budget, or you show me something. It's not like I have to change my whole financial perspective, and really get to be a financially savvy analyst of our stuff in a way. The other is kind of larger. You see what I'm saying? This is more like a real little thing. Would you sit down with me and look at I could show you some things, our budget, what's coming in and out, or we could do it together so we can see what we can afford.
Mm.
Just a little meeting.
And I like how it's put on the other person so that they can be part of it.
Absolutely.
And then who's going to say, when you say, would you be okay sitting down so we can look at things, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah,
You're putting them in the driver's seat. And,
right. It's a request. They don't have to say yes to it. It's a request. That's your small request.
yeah.
And then they can choose to say yes or no. But mostly, if you make it small enough, like just sitting down talking and looking at this, they usually will probably say yes.
Right, right. And you're
Mhm.
not, it's not like you're being a dictator and not saying, don't spend any more money. No, we need to take a look at it. Would you be okay
Right.
sitting down for a few minutes and taking a look at it? So yeah, I mean and
Exactly.
it puts them in the driver's seat because now they need to make the decision. They need to, you're not
Exactly.
telling them, we need to sit down and talk about this. No,
Right. Not a you
you're
message,
asking.
you.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. So I feel they have their freedom, and they can their rights are respected, and your rights and feelings are respected, and so are theirs. Mhm.
Are there other types of communication other than these four major types?
Well, there are variations on communication. These are the primary ones. I mean, uh, there's a form of communication that's called like the sandwich approach or whatever. It's actually got an acronym abbreviation, setup, SETUP. And this actually comes from a book called I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. It's actually about kind of, if you will, borderline personality disorder, or people who are kind of toxic or difficult to talk to. The idea of they hate you and they're clean, don't leave me. You don't know where you're going with that, and it's a little difficult changing up. And there's a way to reach them so that you don't trigger their abandonment feelings, where they're feeling rejected and enraged and then fearful and afraid of losing you at the same time. And you can't really talk to people when they're not very rational at that moment. And it helps you to bring them back into some rationality. It's called set up. So S stands for support. E stands for support.
Support. Got it.
SUPPOR, support.
Mm-hmm.
E stands for empathy. T stands for truth. And that's where you get to say in a sentence your truth. Then you go back. See, the beginning is kind of like the compliments and the connectedness. And then you get a little piece where you have to say the truth, and then the last two are back to that connectedness. So, and U is for understanding. And then P is for perseverance. So, if you want to give me another example, we could kind of do a set up iMessage, if you will, variation.
Should we, you know what? Should we go with the same dog grooming
We can.
example?
We can. Perfect. Perfect. Let's do that. So, all right, support. So what you're trying to say about or you could say about the person, you would be better to know what this is than me, but so you can change it up. But I'd say support example is just saying, I know you're a wonderful pet owner. You're just very loving and very concerned and giving to our dog. you know.
Sure, sure.
So that's a supportive
Mhm.
comment that, you know, you love
But
it very much.
notice you're starting with a positive.
Exactly. It's called kind of the sandwich approach because it's like the bun or something, or the hamburger. You know, you've got the supportive bread there, and then in the middle you get to the meat, and then you go back to the supportive, fluffy, you know, compliments. It's a compliment, then the truth, then a compliment section. So you're saying, I know you just love her so much, our dog so
And you care
much, and you're
about
so
our
good
dog.
to her.
Yeah, I appreciate that
Yes,
you care about our dog, and
right,
you
and
want him to look his best. I'm gonna leave it at
right,
that,
right,
right?
exactly.
So, and
Uh-huh.
the E
Then
stands for,
empathy,
the E is, what was it?
empathy.
Empathy.
Empathy, like, and I know that you've been worried about that skin infection that he had. I don't
Sure,
know, you know,
sure.
that's maybe
Or
that,
yeah, I know
but
that
it
you've
could
been
be
worried about the warmer temperatures coming or currently here, because hair on a dog, right? Just I'm making anything up here, but yeah,
exactly
okay. All
perfect.
right.
Yes, that's it. So you're saying that now you get to the truth, which is what we just did in that I message, where you say,
However, however,
yes,
it's not in our financial best interest to get him groomed as much as you want. Is that
okay,
okay?
that's right. And I'm worried about our finances, right?
Mm,
And we need our finances need attention
sure.
too.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, the truth.
And
All right, then we go to up. UP. U is understanding, making an understanding statement.
well, okay,
Try.
I'm challenged by this one because I gave the understanding I feel previously in um, talking about understanding that the other person wants to get the dog groomed more often. So
Right, right.
what would
Yeah.
the understanding be here or here be?
I don't know what comes off the top of my head might not be accurate. It might be like, I know that you're just a really caring, giving person. And sometimes you'll put your people around you and the dog above, you know, just money. You're understanding that, you know, you're caring more about the well-being of the people or the dog around you than just about money. That could
Uh,
be an
um,
understanding statement.
well, okay, so we're
I don't
taking
know.
this from, the individual addressing the other individual. The other individual wants the dog groomed more often. And
And
then,
that's because they care and they're always
right.
sacrificing for
But
other people.
with we did the truth, and the truth is, we really need to watch our spending. The understanding is you sometimes put focus on things I feel aren't as important. Now, a dog is certainly important.
Understanding is actually the understanding and the perseverance are both about empathy to her. It's so they're nothing. You had your moment. You got your
But
moment. You just said the truth.
I feel like
But you
with
can't, I'm just going, the format is understanding is saying something that understands her. You're going back to complimenting. You got the compliment, the bun, and then you got the meat.
and I already complimented twice. I'm not doing it again. No, I'm kidding.
Come on, you can do
But it
this.
seems like in the beginning that we did that. So I'm trying to literally understand what the understanding is here.
So you repeat something understanding, like maybe trying to go, I understand that you would value maybe her well-being over our money or something like that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And then the perseverance is also, in a sense, a compliment, but it's really to deal with that abandonment, avoidance of triggering that abandonment feeling or rage about being abandoned. The perseverance actually means you make a comment about that you're in the relationship with her, that you are there for her. This is your team. You're in this relationship. So that's what perseverance is. I'm going to persevere just because you spend money all over the gazoo and our finances are wrecked, say that. But we're together, we're a team, we'll make this happen together, kind of a comment. That's what people for perseverance
I
of the
gotcha.
relationship.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the perseverance, the P in the setup maybe could be, um, we're in this together. We'll figure it out. And the best timeline for how often we're going to get Fido groomed.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. And you can say, and I want Fido to be good. I want him in good shape, just like you do.
Right, right. Yeah.
I mean, that's your perseverance. We're in this relationship. I love Fido. Fido's needs are going to get met. Well, we're going to do
But
that.
it
What can
doesn't.
they argue with that?
Fido's needs, the side note here is Fido's needs are going to get met, but it doesn't have to be as often as you think in terms of frequency of grooming. I'm not
Right.
saying
But
that. I'm not saying that
right.
in the setup.
That's right. Because you said the truth. We have got to be aware of our finances that, we're having. The truth is that we have to know what our finances are, know what we can afford so we can stay financially afloat. That's the truth.
It's
And you said,
almost, it goes back to the notion of kill them with kindness, because that's really what's going on here. There's a lot of
yeah, right.
positivity, there's a lot of kindness, there is the truth, but the truth, as
Mhm.
you said, now I fully understand it. The truth is sandwiched
Mhm.
by, call it the empathy, the understanding, and all of that. So this is it's a very positive model, the setup.
Right. Right. Because you could always get your own little grooming kit if somebody was interested or she was interested, and do some grooming on your own if you feel there's a little something out of place. There's so many solutions. If you're in that, like you said, as a team, you care about Fido, you want Fido to feel good and be clean and groomed, and you'll work on it together.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
and that could be as simple as instead of getting Fido groomed every 3 weeks, we do it every 6 weeks.
exactly. And then if you get some clippers that if you feel it needs a little something, well, you'll do it,
Right.
or you should do it, but make sure it'll be okay.
And yeah, if the concern is, well, Fido's nails are growing, well, we'll get a clipper. We'll look on YouTube. We'll figure out the best way to do it. Um, Interesting.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of the way it always should be done. It always like even when I return an email or even a text, I always, I don't want to say always, I most often start with a positive, and usually there's a show of gratitude because there's always something to be grateful in. Thank you, dear Ann, thank you for your thoughts on how to communicate, man, and on and on. There's always something there that you can be positive with when you engage.
Absolutely, there is. And then, right. And more, of course, we connect to good, to the
Mm.
positivity, the better we're going to create that in whatever situation we're in. So, yes.
This is
And
great.
you can just, eh,
This is
yeah,
like
it's
this was
interesting, isn't it?
this was a learning experience and a fun one at that, and a reminder that we need to be positive. But I love the sandwich effect where you're I don't want to say camouflaging your motive, but it's surrounded by the positivity, and it's real, it's genuine. I appreciate the other person caring enough that they want the dog to look good, but maybe that's their choice, and let's look at it a different way. Fantastic. This is just a piece of what you offer when you work with people uh, in terms of sessions, moving their life forward, realizing, I mean, couples communication, all of that, and it can be done virtually. Psychologytoday.com, is that the best place to find you, Anne? I think we might have lost her. It's so funny. Before we got on here, we were talking about technology and how there can be sometimes challenges. I believe she's frozen there on the Wi-Fi. Yeah. If I recall correctly, psychologytoday.com. Look up Dr. Ann Creekmore, and you'll also find details about her book and so much more. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.